Holy, how are you? You're on mute. You're muted.
Yeah,
Oh,
perfect.
that was
Okay,
a
hold on.
DC 8 and you
Rewind.
failed it.
Yeah, rewind.
Hey, Holy, how are you?
Hey, Jason, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to House Rules, a Heroes and Hooligans talk show. We're so pleased to have you with us. My name is Jason. My co-host is Holy. Each episode, we're going to interview someone super talented, interesting from the Heroes and Hooligans community and the larger world of art and TTRPGs. Today, we have Derek Mayfield of DMDM Studios, professional DM, ranked in the top 20 of English language TTRPG affiliates. Welcome, Derek.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys. So pleased to be here.
Yes, so good to have you. You've been super supportive. I've seen it for the Trevor project. So, Holy, you want to give the good news for everyone watching?
Yeah, I do.
And give a little nudge?
I do. So, for those of you who frequent our channel, and maybe for those of you who don't, we are in collaboration with some of our friends in the TTRPG space, DMDM Studios being one of them, putting together a project we are calling Rolling for Charity. And this project, we are currently working on a donation for the Trevor Project. We set our initial goal at $500, and that was our first set of goals. And we started, just barely raising funds around, kicking a few graphics here and there before we officially launched on the 1st. Before our official launch on the 1st, we were over halfway to our goal. Last night, Wednesday the 4th, 4 days into official launch, we not only met our first goal, but we surpassed it.
Woo!
So that is exciting to me. Huzzah!
Oh, yeah.
So now we are moved on to our first stretch goal. We have upped the ante to $800, and when we do hit that, we will jump again to our second stretch goal. So this is something that I am super excited about because it's a great thing. So I'm super happy and super thankful that those of you in the community that surround us are putting your hands out and doing what you can do to help in places as well. So thank you guys. We appreciate that. And let's get that next set of goals. Let's do that.
Yeah. Why don't you drop the link to the Trevor Project
Absolutely
in the chat for the viewers at home.
Absolutely can do.
We're really excited. We're going to do 2 one-shots in June for this. So Holy's going to DM 1, and I'm coming out of retirement. Holy said last night that, it's like she's taken the torch from the old men who've gone off into retirement. And but I'm coming out of retirement for one shot. And we're going to tailor this. This is going to be for our donors. They're going to have the opportunity to join a party and be part of a one shot. We're going to, instead of our normal sort of online streams where we are live for 90 minutes to 2 hours per week for a session, we're actually going to do a full adventure, 4, 6, 8 hours if it takes it. We're going to build a full arc. And we're going to let the players who've donated in that party sort of choose the setting, and they're going to get to choose the tone. If they want horror, we're going to give them horror. If they want comedy, we're going to give them comedy. If they want Oops All Bards, tune in Tuesdays. But if they want dragons, they'll get dragons. If they want to be level 20 and fight a Tarask, we will make it happen. But you're going to get a full experience on that day. It's going to be about the players as a thank you for donating and supporting a very important cause to avoid and stop and save lives of the trans community. Super important. And thank you to Holy for organizing all of that stuff and getting us to our goals. So really excited about that in June. But let's get to Derek. So Derek, Holy's got a first question for you.
I do.
Hit me with it.
If you had to choose between 2 superpowers, flying and invisibility, Which would you choose and why? And before you answer, there is no wrong answer, regardless of what Jason's about to tell you.
Do I exist in a setting where other people have superpowers?
Yeah.
No.
Sure.
No.
Okay, no.
Right now, today, we bestow upon you one or the other. Which one would it
Invisibility.
be? Okay.
Invisibility.
Why?
There we go.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say why online. For political reasons, not anything that's
Fair.
wrong.
Fair.
I would try to do the most good that I possibly think that my morally gray compass would allow me to do with my newfound power.
Yeah, that's kind of Jason's standpoint, right? Is invisibility is too strong. I vibe that same thing, but for a totally different reason. I say invisibility because then I can have some peace and quiet, because if you can't see me, you can't bother me. So I can go do all the work that I need to do. If I want to be a naked druid running through the woods, I can do that, and you're not going to see my booty cheeks clapping as I do it because I'm invisible. That's life. But
good point. I was thinking more along the lines of like Jumper, like, you know, that guy that he meets that like is like, I'm just gonna lead the life that I want to live. That's probably how I would do things, and I would try to, you know, Robin Hood as best I could, but yeah, in this purely hypothetical situation, I would definitely take invisibility so I could fuck over Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos personally.
What about you, Jason? What would you pick?
No, I think it's indisputable that invisibility is the more powerful of the two superpowers. I think you can solve a lot more problems with invisibility. I just don't think you'd have any problems if you could fly. Like what could possibly bother you if you had the ability to fly? So I like your use for good, because it's invisibility is incredibly powerful. If you had that ability in this world, that would be amazing. So yeah, good answer. All right. I'm going to use this next question to lead into the main topic of the evening. What do you think is the coolest monster in the Monster Manual?
Monster Manual only?
No. Give me anything. Anything that people would know.
Can I think about that? Because that's actually like a legitimately hard question. There's so much cool stuff to choose from. I have a really soft place in my heart for liches. If you're familiar with my channel, you would know that it's like all over my branding and everything. But they are very cool. However, the Draco Lich is far, far cooler. I think I would no, even with all the supplements, I think I would still probably go with Draco Lich. There's a reason why I made the big bad evil guy of my setting a Draco Lich. Yeah, I think it's Draco Lich.
Love it. The BBEG. Shout out Rob Ollie on Wednesday nights. Played in his campaign, and that was the BBEG in his campaign. I have we've had liches. I think it's probably one of my favorite. I've role played a tired lich in hell in our last campaign. He was not really a character to be battled. He had been defeated, and he was waiting for his phylactery to bring him back. So he was at a bar in, I believe, the 7th Circle of Hell.
I love that so much.
He was just at the bar drinking the good stuff.
Oh my god, that is so brilliant. Oh my god, that is so cool.
Holy, were you there that night?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think so. I do not recall
couldn't
that.
have possibly been there.
Oh, I'm probably going to steal that idea for the record. I'll credit you.
Yeah, it was the tired lich. And he was, he was not there to really. He gave a few bits of info for the party, but he was not there to be battled. He had just been defeated. All right, so Draco Lich, CR 20x, right? 20 something.
It's a starting point. That's not a Draco Lich. That's not a Draco Lich in my book.
Sure. And then you have sort of like your tactical plan, right? So the CR, if you use the encounter builder in D&D Beyond, or if you sort of use the base stats and then build from it, you can create some really interesting challenges. You can have parties that have on paper capabilities, but they might not be complementary skills. You can have parties that play quite below their level. So I think the D&D Encounter Builder is a nice tool as a starting point. It provides some structure during a battle, but there's real art, there's real science, and there's real math to building an encounter that finds the sweet spot that is challenging, but not completely overpowered. That's going to stomp over the characters. You know your battle plan, you know your tactics, you know your party. So give me your philosophy and how you approach building an encounter for your party. Let's talk through this.
Yeah, so I'm actually not familiar with D&D Beyond system. I've only ever built a couple characters on there for other campaigns. I use Fantasy Grounds Unity to do all my stuff, all my prep, which that does kind of limit the amount of time to prep. Like if I have spare time at work, if I was using D&D Beyond, I guess I could be using that at work and doing encounter building. Maybe I might actually start doing that. So thank you for pointing me in that direction. That
Sure.
My players will hate you. But
well, I think it gives you a starting point.
Yeah, 100%. Because I build a lot of my stuff, and when I say a lot, I mean everything. I make the maps, I make my monsters, I make all my NPCs, homebrew setting, everything. Like pretty much everybody does these days, right?
Yeah.
And so when I think about what I need an encounter to be, I start with the room. And that's just kind of my philosophy behind like making dungeons and running encounters for 5e. From there, I get like a bit of a foundation in the groundwork of what do I want to happen in this encounter. For instance, is it okay with you if I just throw like a hypothetical thing out there?
100%. Let's walk through it.
Okay, so I always wanted to have a really fun Wraith encounter, right? A Wraith is a scary creature. They've got life drain. You fail that Constitution saving throw, your hit point totally is reduced by maximum. So a Wraith isn't supposed to be what? A big bad evil guy of a dungeon, because who cares what you can heal past at that point? That's not what's going to matter. No, a Wraith encounter needs to be a severe mini boss encounter. That's really where they shine. So if you want to build that encounter to be specifically around that, then you need to take it off of the ground floor. You need it to be on a second floor for some reason. Why? Because they have incorporeal movement. They can transmit through walls, and they can come in, attack, and then immediately just go down through the floor. Like literally it's broken and your players are going to think that you're cheating, but they can just do that. As long as there's space for them to go underneath and go back out through the walls and what have you, they can do that. Now, the reason that you're going to want them to be a mini boss encounter instead of the end, again, is that life drain. It's not going to matter how much they can heal during that boss encounter. It's going to matter how much they can heal before they take a long rest. Because if they're in a dungeon, and this is kind of the way that I like to run my dungeons, maybe not everybody else does these days, but I do still roll for random encounters. I would put a lot of emphasis on, if you take a short rest, you might, it's probable that if you're in the dungeon for like an hour or two,
right,
the denizens aren't aware of you yet, so they're not gonna be out there looking for you and finding you. But 3 hours, 4 hours, well, they've probably stumbled upon those dead enemies, the guys that you killed in the last room, and now they know something's in here killing their guys, and they're looking for you, and so they might stumble upon you during a long rest, which is 6 to 8 hours. Depending on the grim or what have you setting mechanics that you're putting into it. So back to the actual encounter building behind like all of that building into it, I try to think beyond just how do I want this encounter to go. That's the next stage. So I get the foundation of how is this encounter going to go, and then I think what is around this encounter, and how do I think they're going to traverse through this dungeon to where they are going to next encounter the next part. And I will make a complete dungeon before I even make the encounters, by the way, but I will be getting ideas while I'm making it, because I spend a lot of time making maps in Incarnate, and I have a lot of thoughts while I'm getting stuff lined up and making sure that it's impeccable as best that I can to my ability. And so I'm thinking about how that's going to actually look and play out. Sorry, I'm kind of monologuing here.
No, I love it. I think it's great. So you're talking about an encounter within the context of the environment, but also within the context of the entire adventure. So you're thinking about where the rest points are, where they aren't, and you're predicting where your party is going to expend their spell slots, expend their heals, their feats, things like that. And I love the Wraith because it's one of those things that players do hate, but it adds a lot to it for them. They don't know, it's not enjoyable, but it adds layers of complexity for them, layers of decisions for them to make around resource management, which is essentially what you're doing, right? You're trying to figure out, can we just unload the clip here, or do we have to sort of work around to try to save some things? And I love those sort of mini boss or those death by 1,000 cuts type encounters. Now, how long do your sessions typically go?
Anywhere from 3 to, I think the longest we've had is 6 hours, and that was a long one. That was like one time, and I was like, "I'm sorry, guys, I did not mean for it to go on for this long," but we just couldn't get to the.
Yeah, and that allows you to have sort of a heroic moment or two while still doing that that real strategy on how you approach one encounter in the context of multiple encounters. I think one of the challenges with audience, with having an audience, there's a lot of pluses, and we've talked a lot about the pluses recently, but one of the challenges is you can't expect an audience to hang with you really for 6 hours.
No.
So you want to have the epic moments packed in, and you want to have a certain pace.
Mm-hmm.
And that can lead us down the road of not doing the things you're doing, which are like the real nuts and bolts of real strategy, tactics within an overall strategy on how you approach an entire dungeon. So I think that's really smart. And I think it's a really classic way to do it. Tried and true methods. It's a challenge for me over the last, I ran a campaign for, I think or about 60 sessions, and
Nice.
trying to create that epic moment every night in less than 2 hours was tough. And there's a lot of nights where I'm like, look, you're just going to get to unload the clip, and we're going to really push you, and you're going to get a long rest. And you can kind of know that you're going to get a long rest, right?
Yeah, in some ways as a DM, right?
Yeah, and then there's other times where you're going to hit them with something, and then they're going to be left in a situation where they know that, they made it through easier than they thought, but they're 30% of their resources are down. Hit points, spell slots, all that. 30% of their resources are down, and they're in a spot where it's just not conceivable where they would be able to rest. They kind of know that at the end. So then the question for the next week is, okay, are we going to get to use the other 70%, or are we going to get another 30? Is this an arc of 4 sessions, or is this a 3-session arc? So you want to leave uncertainty. You want to make the decisions challenging, but solvable, right? I think that's what puzzles are for, and that's the sweet spot. We want everything to be challenging but solvable.
Mm-hmm.
So that people feel like heroes at the end of the day. They feel like they accomplished something that was literally hard. They're not just showing off their power gaming skills on their character sheet.
You were speaking my language, yeah. Everything you just said, I agree with 100%.
Yeah. Holy, you've been doing some encounters. Last night's puzzle, by the way, was fantastic.
You like that?
I thought it was great. I realized that the party that we had last night, we need a couple of we're having a couple of new players, and they need to have some intelligence because we sure didn't. And I felt like the puzzles, we were maybe stretching our character sheets with even solving the puzzles that we had. So, but you've been you have two relatively new parties, right? And you've got a second level party, if I recall, and a third level party.
Yep.
Right.
And I have a first level party.
Yeah. So high variance.
Very
First
much
level, second level, third level. We're still in the high variance zone. How do you build an encounter, a battle, for parties at that low level, where you find that sweet spot where you're gonna push them, but not kill them?
So when it comes to my campaigns in particularly, my Tuesday night group is all bards. You play in that game, you know that. All bards in one party is extremely powerful. In a typical setting of, me having a group of second level characters, I would stay with generally a 1-to-1 ratio of enemies or less, depending on what CR rating I did. I like to do mobs, right? Low health, big number mobs at that lighter level, because it feels overwhelming when they see 10 people come on the battlefield, but 1 9 hit point set of damage and that character's gone, right? So it's like, I like to give that fear of an overwhelming sense when the numbers on my side are much lower than they look. But I also have to take into accountability when it comes to like my Tuesday night group, for example. Bards are support characters. They have the ability to give inspiration every turn if they want to. So they're consistently upping the numbers. You have lucky feats, re-rolls, all kinds of things that come with just being a bard that are absolutely insane. Yeah. So when I build encounters for that game, I build above what I normally would. So I build an encounter for a 5th level party that isn't all bards for a 2nd level all bard party, because it's an insane amount of damage. And I've tested a few things in the combat that we've had to see what I kind of need to round it out and make sure that you're still getting that on the edge of your seat, but not a holy crap, we're going to die, except for this week, Tuesday. That's going to be a little bit different.
All right. So we've all, none of us are going to admit it, except we're going to admit it. We've all messed up the math and made an encounter too hard.
Yep.
And let's say we were optimistic about the party's cohesive tactics, and they either played under what we expected or the rolls were just off.
Mm-hmm.
And we know 3 rounds in, this is going sideways. Are we sticking with our math, or are we fudging the rolls?
Fudging the rolls, absolutely.
You
It's
admitted it.
I will.
You can't say that live. We're live. There's
No, I
watching.
can't say that live because we're DMs, right? Like, I'm a firm believer in the fact that a DM is a person too, and we're allowed to mess up and we're allowed to admit our mistakes. So to me, if I overbalanced a party, it is their math, right? And my enemies are swarming them and they're just not playing where they need to. Like we experienced a couple weeks ago on Wednesday. I had to drop that battle back because
you're admitting something that I admonished our party for, but I never outright told them for sure that you did, but I was sure that you did. But
absolutely did. Yeah. When combat, to me, when it starts feeling like the encounter that I built is something that's going to lead into more damage and maiming than I have foreseen in my head for this particular encounter, I'm dropping numbers. I'm dropping back. Like, I'm not running max damage anymore. 9 times out of 10, I'm a flat roll DM. So I don't roll the dice. I take the flat damage and that's what we go. Then I start rolling and dropping it down. Like, I'll start bringing it back and bringing it back because I'm not a DM that likes to TPK. Am I in a particular situation right now that puts a party of mine in a TPK situation? Yes, I am. Am I going to handle it the way that I need to? Unfortunately, yes, I am. We're currently rolling out 6 new Bard characters for my Bards game. That's c'est la vie, such is life. But it's not where I tend to aim, right? So I will. And I will admit that as a DM that I sometimes get my math wrong because I'm human too. It's okay for me to say that I messed up, that I need to take a step back. Like, I think we need to bring to the table more conversations of DMs being able to say, hey, so the session didn't go quite how I had planned on it to go. Let's take a step back. Let's retcon it back. I think that's something that is a language that can be brought. Like, things can change. Like, it's a story. It can be rewritten. Erase those pages and we're going to go back. Like, I think that's something that needs to be talked about more.
Yeah, I do think we should talk about it because I know that my sense is that I know that every DM is faced with this, right? And it is often the party's fault. So I will tell you, on the Wednesday I was in the party, it was entirely our fault. It was bad tactics. It was an opportunity for me to sort of say, all right, folks, look, we have to have some basic 101 like tactics here. We're not going back to, version 3.5 where it's all grid style and we block the door and we close off every square on the grid. But some basics we have to do. We can't leave our squishies out to just get hammered because they're doing all the damage, and if they go, we have no real way to kill things. So we have to have a way to keep monsters off of them, and we have to have a way to heal them, right? So it was an opportunity early level 2, I think we were, to learn from that. But for me, it is a balance. Sometimes it's us as a DM doing the math just wrong, and sometimes it's the party just having an off night, or and just not bringing their A game, and sometimes it's the dice. So Derek, are you going to admit to it?
Not on your life.
Yeah, I don't think
No,
you can. I honestly don't think you can admit it, right? So, Holy, from now on, you can never do that again.
Fantasy Grounds doesn't let me fudge is actually the thing, though.
Yeah, I don't think you can ever.
It tells the players if they hit or not, and it tells the players if they get hit or not, and it tells the players if they failed their save or not. So I could change that if I felt like it, but
yeah, you could run Encounter Builder in D&D Beyond because they can't see any of that.
No, I mean there's options in Fantasy Grounds to change it. I could if I wanted to, but I don't.
Yeah, no, I typically don't as well. There are a few different options, and we don't have to pull the curtain too far back. We do have tools at our disposal. I think fudging rolls. Well, first of all, let's face it. There's a reason old school that the dungeon master screen existed. There's a reason for that. But I think it's really important that players trust the dice, and they trust that the dice are legit, and they trust their DM to play the game straight up. And because the worst thing you want is a party that feels like you are out to get them and you're oppositional to them. So I'm a big believer that this is a collaborative storytelling. 90%. That's low. I would say 99.9%.
Oof, 3 not 1.
Yeah, so that does happen, and this is a collaborative storytelling process. Yep. The DM is managing that process. The DM is not almost never out to get the party. They're almost never looking to cheat to harm their party. They put a ton of work in. I don't think players that haven't DM know how much work there is to it.
Correct.
A DM's job is not to fight fair. A DM's job is to fight honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with you entirely. And they have to feel that way. So it is a very, very difficult position that either we put ourselves in or the party can put a DM into that we want to avoid. But as the Dungeon Master's Guide says, here's all the things and here's all the guidance, but you're the DM. Do what you want.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So encounters. Any other thoughts? What's your favorite sort of tactical curveball to throw at parties? I have some cardinal rules. Like, for example, if you're fighting a party of undead, that undead wants to kill that cleric first. No question about it. They want that cleric dead. It's like every party that I've ever DM'd for is going to know that within the first couple of undead encounters. They know that the undead are going to obsess about that cleric until that cleric is down.
It's really easy to like make that make sense to a lore perspective too, right? Like, yeah, you're like a beacon of a holy energy. They want to come eat that or like take that power from you because they want a soul or whatever, you know.
And it's their biggest threat.
And that's why you would do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I use because for me, I'm trying to, as I think about tactics, I want my monsters to mix up their tactics. So a brutish sort of strength-based, melee-based monster that's large size may go after the physically largest creature because it sees it as the biggest threat. So it may attack the physically largest. Or if it's sort of like predatory, it may go after the physically smallest. And then other parties might go after the biggest damage dealer. So if you have a thief that's rolling backstab, like all of a sudden that's catching a lot of heat. Do you have things like that, Derek?
Yeah, I would definitely say that I do. I guess when it comes down to like the way that I would like actually plot it is I feel, and this is kind of is everybody's a hypocrite. This is kind of me just immediately backpedaling on what I said earlier about a DM's job is not to fight fair. That's still sort of not the case, right? Because even though you don't fight fair, you do throw them up against encounters that you set up to challenge them and test them. You still know everything that they can do, and they have no idea what you're going to throw at them unless they explicitly know for whatever reason. Right. So I try really hard not to think about it in that terms, because then it seems more like personal, I guess, in a way. And I don't mean it to sound that way. Like it's not personal. Like they're going to take it like I'm trying to attack them personally, as much as it is like, I know your character and I'm the one that's coming up with this stuff and you're going to have to face it. And yeah, I can just come up with a hard counter for you specifically to shut you down for a whole encounter. And that feels awful. If you've ever been on the receiving end of that you don't want to do that to anybody. That sucks.
You don't want to, but also, let me pause you for a minute. There are times as a DM where you will get players at your table that you absolutely have to hit with an encounter like that, or they completely overtake the rest of the party and nothing else matters, right? You get that one power gamer at the table that you have to set that boundary with. Like, if you can power game, so can the enemies. If you can do it, so can they. So we're going to hit you back. Pooh, like just like that, like take flat to the chest, understand that.
Or the other way, which is from playing sports, when you had a talented player who was selfish, one of the things coaches might do is punish everyone else. So one of the things I've done with super power gamers who, no matter what challenge you throw out, they step in front and they're like, I can do that. I can fix this. I can kill that. It's my time. It's always their time. One of the things you do is you frankly say, okay, we've got some people who are really like got a lot of 13s and 9s on their character sheet, and they're here to fill a role, and you seem to want to fill all the roles. Well, I guess I'm going to have to build the encounter to your level, and what's going to happen is those people may get killed. and showing that, building the challenge rating of the encounter to that highest power person might really result in some really bad outcomes for people in their party. And then the party sort of starts to regulate each other. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. I do think, though, that mixing up the challenge types can feel personal. I agree with you, Derek. But one of the things you want to just do is anchor your monster with a point of view like you would with an NPC or you would with a character. You'd have a point of view that person, like using the undead example, how do they view the world, and how do they view this party as a challenge, and does it make sense through that monster's eyes what they're doing, or that that mob's eyes? Does it ring true from their perspective? And if you do that, then I don't think that the players will feel singled out, because next week you're going to encounter something different that's going to have a different point of view, right?
That's a good point. And I would say that I very much attempt to do that insofar as like moment to moment monster or creature choice. What are they seeing happening, and what are they thinking, and what would they do with that information? And obviously that's kind of hard sometimes when you're controlling a lot of stuff, especially. Yeah. But I mean, there's a reason why zombies are such a good trope, right? And everybody loves fighting zombies. They're mindless. They're not going to make tactical decisions unless they're being puppeted by a necromancer that is specifically like, okay, now do this.
Viverendi.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, that's certainly true. And again, I would say, in that same vein of everyone's a hypocrite, I still know all the things that my players can do for the most part. And I'm going to forget, but like, I'm going to forget some of it, but like, I mean, I still know all of what they can do. So I need to temper whatever I'm going to make with that knowledge.
Yeah, 100%. So the way that I would do things is a 4-session level arc. So I do session-based leveling. And first session, I throw a battle that is a test battle that lets the party sort of show off their new skills. Mm-hmm. For me, that's all about assessing what they now can do and how it relates to each other as a party. So I see it on the sheet, but then when you see them together as a group of 5, how something, especially when it comes to buffs, where you have these support characters that can really amplify the things that everyone else does. Seeing that in that first session gives me then really a couple of weeks to prepare that sort of final battle before they level up on session 4. And that's where I'm really going to try to push them to use everything they've learned, everything they've gained, and maybe highlight some blind spots and weak spots for them, so that as they level up, they start to make decisions around how to get better as a party. Because I don't like where you have one runaway power gamer character that just gets more tactically like perfect every level, and someone else is really leaning into a bit that makes a lot of sense for their personality. Or may like amplify the skills of the party as a whole, and you have one person who's just racing ahead, way beyond the level. So I want to show those weak points, the blind spots, in session 4. So that's the other layer I would say on this as we're building characters, building encounters. You've got the session itself, you've got the dungeon as a whole, but then you've got this layered of progressing this party as a whole, helping them see their blind spots in their roles, develop those roles and dynamics. And that's separate from role play and all of the pure personality stuff that is where the real magic is. But we're talking about math today, I think, and tactics. All right. Let's get to our heavy question.
Yeah.
We ready? We ready to go deep? Okay.
Let's do it.
Derek, I'm a big believer that the person we are between the age of 9 and 12, we call it the wonder years. It's when between 9 and 12, we sort of become autonomous in the world. We sort of learn how to navigate this world. We have developed our essential personality, our essential self. And then middle school, high school, all kinds of changes occur, right? Stress, responsibility, all kinds of things occur. But at age 12, I think we are, most of us, our essential self. So who were you at age 12? And talk about the things you do to try to preserve or get back to that essential version of Derek.
"12 specifically?"
9 to 12, the wonder years.
Well, who I was at 9 was vastly different from who I was at 12.
Okay, talk about it.
You really did say you were going to go deep. Fair enough. Okay. When I was 9, I grew up in a very religious household, and that was true until I was like 19, and I joined the United States Air Force and went off and did my own thing and became my own person. But at that point, I was still very much a product of my environment, and I didn't understand the concept of hate truly. You know, like a child can't.
Yep.
And by the time I was 12, I was incredibly familiar with the concept.
Wow.
My aunt and uncle died, and I wasn't close. They weren't particularly great people. If I'm being completely honest with you, their kids probably would have done a lot better insofar as like integrating into the world at large if their parents weren't the way that they were. So it's probably like a net positive that things happened the way that they did, but that didn't mean that it didn't come with its own set of like challenges and troubles. I went from being a kid with a 13-year-old, like he was 13 years older than me, my brother. And so by the time I was 8 years old, he had met the woman that he married and he had moved out and, you know, he had his own life and everything. But at 12, when my aunt and uncle died, my parents adopted their kids and things were incredibly hard for a long time. And that happened at 12, and it really changed who I was in a very short period of time. So when I think about like the essential me, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't really know exactly who that is. So I guess I'm still trying to figure that out. But I don't know.
Yeah, so you talked before we went live about the opportunity that Dungeons and Dragons gives all of us to take a sliver of our personality and try it out, put it into the form of a player character, and blow it up into a 360-degree version of that. I think it's a really powerful concept. I agree with you entirely in that. And for people that are still trying to figure it out, and I think that's why this game resonates so much with teenagers and younger people. It really is a way for us to try out different personality aspects. Do you feel like that's like part of what draws you to this?
100%. I was always really, really interested in creating things from a very young age. Honestly, the first thing that I wanted to do as a kid, and it's kind of funny, I've had this conversation like 3 or 4 times this week, is I wanted to be like Indiana Jones, but also discover that dinosaurs were still real. And then the moment that I figured out that that wasn't real, that like that could never happen, I was like, well, shit, I want to make that then. If I can't actually do that, then I want to like make that reality in my own substrate of the existence that I have. And so from then on, it was always about, I want to create things. At first, and it's still something that I practice to this day. The first thing that I really lashed out to was music, because it's just, raw emotion given form with math, actually. So
Absolutely.
math, I guess, is useful after all. Anyway, yeah, so that I've always had it within me to want to create things. And I feel like a large part of that is because I always wanted to, I always knew that I was going to die, I guess. I don't mean to stay so fucking weird with.
No, it's great.
Like I said, I was raised in a really religious household. So like you're told from day one, hey, you're going to die. And if you did the wrong thing, well, then you're going to be suffering for literal forever. But if you do the right thing, then you get to live it up forever. And so that was always on my mind. And I was like, well, as long as I'm a good person and I do more good than harm, then I'm going to probably end up all right. And, flash forward to today where I don't even harbor any beliefs about the afterlife or anything like that anymore. I still do feel like it is incredibly important how you are remembered, because if there is nothing else, then like, well, what about the people that are still here after you? Because you're not, who is it that says it? You die 2 deaths. You die physically, and then you die when the last person who knew about you in any way, shape, or form stops talking about you or dies themselves.
Yeah.
And I mean,
shout out Genghis Khan.
Yeah, Genghis Khan. And that is a perfect segue into what I was going to say next, which is all those people that have shaped human history were not great people, but they had it in them to be like, well, they're going to remember me. And I mean, they didn't do good things for it, but like, imagine if they did. Like, imagine if they were still just as driven as they were, and they did every single thing they could to make the world better. Like Nikola Tesla, that is prime example of who pops into my mind. He did every single thing that he could to make life better for people. And he was met with actual resistance from like people that wanted to capitalize off of that. And obviously we're still facing many such problems today in our society. I'd say that it's even probably worse now because of just the state of capitalism. But long story short, I don't want to go off into a political tangent. That's my flagpole, that's my hill, and that's where I'll die on it.
Well, and thank you for sharing. I really do appreciate it. I know it is a deep question, and you are the 4th person we've asked that question to, and it's heavy. And I know it's not an easy question, and I appreciate you sharing. If you want a cause for optimism in what is seemingly a really dark period, the last couple of years have been really, really foundation shaking, I think, for society. And it's because when society is faced with major challenges, you find out who's in it together and who's really got some fear-based evil. But if you want a book that gives, real cause for optimism, Steven Pinker's The Better Angels of Our Nature is a fantastic, it's a long read, it's a dense book, it's a heavy book, but it goes through the history of violence in humanity, and it shows that all trends are that even though it feels like things are dark and getting worse, the reality is statistically, not anecdotally, but statistically, lifespans are increasing, violence is decreasing, and human rights is increasing. There are hills and valleys, there are peaks and valleys, but over the course of millennia, humans are advancing towards the better angels of our nature. So I really do appreciate you sharing. I know it's not easy to talk about some of these things, and talking about sort of like life before trauma is sort of, it's easy to grieve for that person that we were before trauma. So I really do appreciate you sharing. And we're gonna finish on a fun one. Where our last question, Holy, you want to ask it?
What is your favorite house rule that you have for your tables?
Ooh, I don't have too many, if I'm being honest. Honestly very recently started implementing potions as a bonus action. You roll for it, or you can use a standard action to get the full benefit from it, but that's only healing potions. Otherwise, you have to use like a full action to apply oils or take potions, or however long it normally takes. So specifically for healing potions. I feel like that's really freed up combat a little bit more. It's allowed them to make more tactical decisions, which is, in my book, usually a good thing, as long as it doesn't overcomplicate it to the degree where, like, man, I can do so many things. I don't know. I'm just going to Eldritch Blast. And you're like, dude, you have like a Staff of the Archmagi. So I guess that's a pretty good one. Also, no, that's not really a house rule. It's just something that I do for fun. I'll do it anyway. I use the tarot deck of many things for like really important boss encounters and stuff like afterwards. I really like that. That's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, that's very cool. Holy, you love the rule of cool. So talk about the rule of cool.
Yeah, I do love the rule of cool because I feel like everybody knows I'm not a combat heavy DM. I'll make it short, but I'm not a combat heavy DM, and I like to make sure that combat continuously feels fun. So when combat isn't fun, it's not cool and we're not doing it. So one thing that I like to do for my house rule that keeps combat fun, right, is I have this nat 1 system. So when you roll a nat 1, then you roll me a d10, and that determines the severity of your nat 1. And I have a deck of cards, a critical fail deck of cards. So depending on where you roll and the severity of that D10 depends on what kind of card I pull from the deck. And it could go anywhere from something embarrassing, something awkward, to something absolutely detrimental. You're hurting yourself or somebody in your party. You could just have a bowstring snap. You could trip. You could be, hand cramp for the next 3 rounds, giving you disadvantage, something silly, or it could be something really big. But I think it adds that extra added RP element into combat, and it's always that extra, I don't know what the crap is going to happen.
Yeah, cool.
I'll give one that I love to do. I want to make every character, every party a little bit paranoid that any interesting NPC they ever encounter is secretly a dragon. And they almost never are. But I always want them to think that they might be. And I love in the Discord channel through the week when they're talking to each other, the speculation, because I like watching the speculation of the party, create a little seed of paranoia and watch them speculate. Because often they will come up with better storylines than I could have come up with myself. So that's mine for this week. Lala put this this hype video together, and I haven't used it, so we're going to use this real quick to help Derek plug DMDM Studios. Let's listen to it.
Yo, that was sick, dude.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
Yeah. Shout out to marketing, Heroes and Hooligans marketing department. Lala, she's in the audience right now. She put that together for you today.
Yeah, so cool. If you want to use that, we can send you over a
I'll drop you a
MP4 of that bad boy. That's great stuff. So Derek, thank you for coming on. It's been really fun. Thank you for sharing. I think this is the first one where we've really talked to a DM about tactics. We talked a lot about streaming with DMs in the past and sort of techniques, but this one we got pretty deep behind the curtain, behind the DM screen, I should say. Holy even admitted to breaking a cardinal rule on
I didn't do that.
live on Twitch. she did promise that it'll never happen again. So, you know, it doesn't really matter that it's happened before. It'll never happen again. And we will see you next week. Wooly?
Yeah,
Fun.
next week.
House
Heroes of
rules.
Billy Guy.